The film begins by introducing a blind assassin named Cheng Xiazizi. Despite being blind, Xiazizi is a highly feared killer. However, until now, people have only heard his name and never seen his face. This time, Xiazizi takes on a royal bounty to capture several fugitives, and he goes to a gambling house on the outskirts of town to find these fugitives. Upon arrival, a suspicious-looking croupier refuses to reveal the fugitive's location to Xiazizi. As the result, the assassin kills him on the spot. It turns out that the croupier was one of the fugitives Xiazizi was searching for, as described in the bounty posters. At that moment, it is shown that Xiazizi has extremely sharp instincts because, after losing one of his senses, his remaining 4 senses became even sharper. When Xiazizi is about to leave, the gambling house guards, unhappy with the croupier's death, attack him. However, as a master swordsman, Xiazizi easily defeats them. After completing his mission, Xiazizi chooses to rest at his home. The next day, a little girl named Xiaoyu and her younger sister are being chased by a group of thugs. When they are caught, the thugs snatch a silver whistle from her younger sister, and Xiaoyu tries to retrieve it by biting one of the thugs' hands. Unfortunately, Xiaoyu's body is too small to fight against the thugs. At that moment, Xiazizi, who is present, does not stand by and chases the thugs away. But since no one listens, Xiazizi is forced to use violence. Feeling indebted, Xiaoyu then thanks Xiazizi and offers him an apple, but he ignores her. That night, Xiaoyu sneaks into a tavern to steal food, as she and her younger sister are starving. Unfortunately, Xiaoyu is caught by the tavern keeper, and in fear, she points a food skewer at the tavern keeper. Seeing this, the tavern keeper feels sympathetic and gives Xiaoyu 2 pieces of bread. Not long after, a group of people enters the tavern and they are led by an official's son named Zhu Lang, who takes everyone in the tavern hostage, including the woman who gave bread to Xiaoyu. It turns out the tavern belongs to a family of rebels planning to flee the city. However, Zhu Lang does not come on behalf of the palace, but wants to silence them so they do not report to the kingdom. Because, 1 year ago, Zhu Lang killed the tavern owner's child. Therefore, now Zhu Lang decides to kill the rebel family. On the other hand, Xiaoyu, who is still there, hides in a haystack, trying to keep from screaming. But eventually, the child witnesses the murder of the people in the tavern. Soon after, Zhu Lang examines the pile of straw, causing Xiaoyu, who is hiding inside, to panic and flee immediately. As a result, Zhu Lang orders his right-hand man, Wang Yin, to chase her. While running, Wang Yin accidentally collides with a drunken Xiazizi. However, Wang Yin only assumes him is an ordinary blind person. When he returns home, Xiazizi finds Xiaoyu hiding there. Initially, Xiazizi wants to chase Xiaoyu away because he wants to sleep, but shortly after, Zhu Lang's men break into his house. At that moment, Xiazizi senses a great threat faced by Xiaoyu and finally decides to hide her. Shortly after, since they do not find Xiaoyu, Zhu Lang's men leave. However, Wang Yin sees Xiaoyu's younger sister, and unfortunately, they mistake her for Xiaoyu. Consequently, the thugs capture her and take her away on horseback. Xiaoyu's younger sister, panicking, blows the whistle to call her older sister, and Xiaoyu rushes out to chase after her. But she cannot run as fast as the horses, and at the same time the thugs cruelly knock down Xiaoyu's younger sister, who gets trampled. The next morning, Xiaoyu meets Xiazizi with a heavy heart after witnessing her younger sister's tragic death. She then asks Xiazizi for help to avenge her sister's death, but Xiazizi says he is not a random killer as he only kills the fugitives on the bounty posters. After that, Xiazizi chooses to leave Xiaoyu and goes to a market to meet his friend Huzi, an informant with a wealth of information about bounties. Huzi then tells him that a little girl wants to hire him to kill Zhu Lang, and the little girl is Xiaoyu. If successful, she will give him a silver whistle that belonged to her parents. But unfortunately, Xiazizi declines the offer. When Xiazizi returns home, Xiaoyu is waiting for him there and again begs him to help her, but he still refuses. After being repeatedly rejected, Xiaoyu loses patience and says her sister's death is Xiazizi's fault because he could have saved them. Hearing this, Xiazizi becomes angry and immediately drives Xiaoyu away. The next day, Xiazizi goes out of town to search for a fugitive. However, during the journey, his horse carriage suddenly breaks, throwing him towards a ravine. Fortunately, Xiazizi finds a stone foothold and does not fall. At the same time, Xiaoyu, who has been following Xiazizi, grabs onto his back. After they are safe, Xiazizi reluctantly has to take Xiaoyu with him because if left behind, she would surely be kidnapped, especially since the area they are passing through is far from any settlements. To make Xiaoyu useful to him, Xiaoyu is asked to read the map for him. During their journey, Xiazizi and Xiaoyu travel through forests and springs unfamiliar to Xiazizi. Fortunately, they do not get lost because Xiaoyu guides them correctly according to the map. Upon arriving at their destination city, Xiazizi immediately searches for the fugitive he is targeting. While walking through the market, Xiaoyu spots the fugitive engaged in a transaction with a merchant. To avoid suspicion, Xiazizi visits the house as a guest, pretending to be lost. At that time, Xiazizi is offered a drink like any other guest, but shortly after, he feels blood dripping under his chair. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu, playing by the lake, is shocked to see a severed hand floating in the lake and screams in fear. Not long after, having dealt with the fugitive, Xiazizi asks Xiaoyu to leave him because the city is quite safe for her. However, Xiaoyu refuses because she still wants to accompany him and offers to read the map as before. But Xiazizi's decision is firm, so Xiaoyu has no choice but to stay behind. 1 month after their separation, Xiazizi is surprised by Xiaoyu's arrival at his home. However, Xiaoyu appears full of wounds and is unconscious. Feeling pity, Xiazizi decides to treat her injuries. The next day, Xiaoyu finally wakes up, and Xiazizi immediately asks how she found his home. It turns out Xiaoyu had memorized Xiazizi's map, so she knew the fastest route home. But because she had no horse, Xiaoyu bravely walked for days, and upon arrival, she fainted from exhaustion. After explaining her journey, Xiaoyu asks Xiazizi to teach her to fight so she can take revenge herself. Without hesitation, Xiazizi refuses her request, but he allows Xiaoyu to stay in his house. From that day on, Xiaoyu begins her life with Xiazizi, helping him clean the house. One day, while Xiazizi is hunting a fugitive, Xiaoyu suddenly appears and helps him when he almost loses his target. From that moment, Xiazizi realizes Xiaoyu's potential. Eventually, he allows her to join his hunting missions, and with Xiaoyu's help, Xiazizi manages to capture more fugitives. Gradually, their relationship becomes closer. Xiaoyu even starts to consider Xiazizi as her father, even though he always acts indifferent. One night, they both accidentally witness a robbery at a pawn shop. Since local residents are held hostage, Xiazizi and Xiaoyu decide to help them. In the middle of the fight, the robber leader's sword suddenly spews fire, making it difficult for Xiazizi. Unfortunately, Xiazizi cannot catch the robber, who escapes very quickly. Additionally, he has to treat a wound on his back. The next morning, Xiaoyu makes a soup for Xiazizi so he can recover quickly and return to work. During breakfast, Xiazizi asks about Xiaoyu's parents. Although it is a bit difficult, Xiaoyu answers and says that her mother died of starvation. That night, Xiaoyu treats the burn on Xiazizi's back and is shocked by the number of scars on his body. It turns out all those scars are from the war because when he was younger, Xiazizi was a commander of the royal army. A few days later, Xiaoyu goes to an entertainment venue to ask an informant for information about the robber's hideout. After finding out the location, she accidentally sees Wang Yin at the venue. Xiaoyu then follows him into a room and discovers that Zhu Lang is also there, enjoying an illegal fight. Seeing Xiaoyu's presence, Zhu Lang invites her to sit beside him. At that moment, Xiaoyu can only remain silent while remembering her younger sister's death. Deep down, Xiaoyu wants to kill Zhu Lang, but unfortunately, she is not brave enough to do it. After returning from the entertainment venue, Xiaoyu is taken by Xiazizi to a place to discuss something. There, Xiazizi says that Xiaoyu must leave the city soon because sooner or later, Zhu Lang will find out her identity. However, Xiaoyu does not want to go anywhere before avenging her younger sister's death. To prove she is not a weak child, Xiaoyu steals Xiazizi's explosives and goes to the robber's hideout. At the hideout, Xiaoyu lures the robbers into a room where she threatens to blow them up if they come closer. Unfortunately, the robbers manage to seize the bomb's detonator, cornering Xiaoyu. Luckily, Xiazizi arrives just in time to save her. Because of this incident, Xiazizi becomes very angry with Xiaoyu's reckless actions. However, Xiaoyu explains that she just wanted to prove she had the courage to seek revenge. When she met Zhu Lang earlier, she was still too afraid to act, even though she only needed to take a knife and stab Zhu Lang's stomach. but for some reason, Xiaoyu couldn't do it. After hearing this, Xiazi finally relents and agrees to teach Xiaoyu how to seek revenge. First, he takes her to a tavern to teach her how to mark someone's neck with a brush without them noticing. If Xiaoyu can master this technique, she will surely be able to kill Zhu Lang effectively and efficiently. Without wasting time, Xiaoyu begins practicing the technique. A few days later, Wang Yin sneaks into Xiazi's house to interrogate Xiaoyu. It turns out that Wang Yin got the address from a robber who still holds a grudge against Xiazi. At that time, Wang Yin says that he saw a bounty poster with Zhu Lang's picture. However, after investigating, he discovers that the person who drew it was Xiaoyu. Soon after, Xiazi returns home and senses something is wrong when he realizes that Xiaoyu has suddenly disappeared without a trace. While Xiazi is searching for her, Wang Yin suddenly appears and attacks him, but Xiazi easily defeats him. After that, Xiaoyu and Xiazi take refuge in Hu Zi's house, where they prepare to leave the city because it has become too dangerous. The next day, they begin their journey to the city of Chang'an, which is Xiazi's hometown, and the journey will take several days. While resting, Xiaoyu jokes about offering one of her eyes so that Xiazi can see again, but Xiazi just chuckles in response. The next morning, Xiazi is shocked to find that Xiaoyu is no longer there. Someone informs him that Xiaoyu was taken back to the previous city by someone riding a horse. Feeling worried, Xiazi decides to turn back, riding his beloved horse. Meanwhile, Zhu Lang is preparing hundreds of his soldiers to chase Xiazi and Xiaoyu because he received news that Wang Yin had been killed by Xiazi. But unbeknownst to him, Xiaoyu has secretly infiltrated his house to seek revenge. When Zhu Lang enters his room, he senses something strange under his desk. As he is about to check, Xiaoyu suddenly attacks him. Unfortunately, her revenge attempt is thwarted by Zhu Lang's guard. However, Xiaoyu does not give up and immediately puts into practice all the techniques taught by Xiazi. Meanwhile, Zhu Lang had just consumed a powder that made him feel like he was floating. He then forced a handful of the powder into Xiaoyu's mouth, causing her to cough and spit up blood. In retaliation, Xiaoyu spat in Zhu Lang's face. At that moment, Zhu Lang praised her bravery but made it clear he wouldn't let Xiaoyu ruin his reputation, and he decided to kill her slowly. Fortunately, Xiazi arrived in time to help Xiaoyu. Seeing Xiazi, Xiaoyu immediately hugged him like a child longing for their father. As they tried to leave, they were confronted by dozens of Zhu Lang soldiers. Xiazi realized they couldn't escape without a fight, so he had no choice but to kill all the soldiers. Despite his best efforts, more soldiers kept coming until they were both surrounded and cornered. At that moment, Xiaoyu fainted from the stress, unlike Xiazi, who was used to such situations. Before attacking again, Xiazi decided to carry Xiaoyu, and with strong instincts, he swiftly slashed through all the soldiers. After defeating all the soldiers, Xiazi had to face Zhu Lang. Even though his body was covered in sword wounds, he managed to stand up and avenge Xiaoyu. As Zhu Lang grew tired, Xiazi seized the opportunity to finish him off. After that, with his body full of wounds, Xiazi carried Xiaoyu out of Zhu Lang's burning house. When everything was over, Xiazi hugged Xiaoyu tightly, gently stroking her hair. Slowly, Xiazi took his last breath under the falling snow. The next day, Xiaoyu woke up from her unconsciousness after being cared for by Hu Zi. Before dying, Xiazi had asked his friend to take care of Xiaoyu. Once she recovered, Hu Zi invited her to move to the peaceful city of Chang'an and start a new life. The film ends. Moral lesson from the story: even a blind assassin can find a needle in a haystack, but he might still trip over a rock. And remember to trust your instincts, but watch your step.